metrics, which show Bitcoin whales are gradually declining while holdings in smaller retail wallets have increased. The analysts wrote that they still think we are early in the adoption cycle for financial advisors and other investors, but spot ETF flows will be the, quote, key to watch for a change in sentiment.
Be straight with you, the next 4 days could change everything. Not months, not next bull run. For days. Because right now, behind the noise, something massive is aligning around HBAR, QNT, and XRP, the three coins quietly sitting at the center of a global reset most people still think is a conspiracy. Let's break this down fast. In less than a week, several major things converge. Institutional liquidity testing windows close. ISO 20022 settlement data goes live in new regions. Central bank payment bridges start their final phase of integration. And guess which assets are built for that system? XRP, for instant global settlement. QNT, for interoperability between digital assets. HBAR, for enterprise-grade tokenization and smart contract rails. So when I say you've got 4 days, I'm not being dramatic. I'm saying the window where these coins are still under the radar is shrinking fast. Look around. Banks are testing tokenized deposits. Payment giants are linking stablecoins with central bank networks. Enterprises are demanding public ledgers that comply with regulation and move at internet speed. That's literally the combined superpower of these three projects. HBAR gives them enterprise trust and lightning-fast throughput. QNT's Overledger connects old financial systems to blockchain. XRP is the liquidity bridge that makes cross-border money flow like data. Together, they form the digital nervous system of the new financial web. And the moment that switch flips, the price action won't wait for you to double-check your portfolio. Here's where it gets wild. Every few months, liquidity providers run silent tests, moving small packets of real value through networks like RippleNet, Hedera Consensus Service, and private Overledger channels. When those packets settle smoothly across borders, regulators greenlight larger volumes. We're talking billions, not thousands. This next test cycle, set to finalize within days, is rumored to include multiple banking consortia. Translation: if it succeeds, real institutional liquidity starts flowing through these assets in Q1 2026. That's why traders, whales, and even corporate insiders are watching the next 4 days like hawks. Crypto Twitter's busy arguing about meme coins and ETF filings. Meanwhile, the infrastructure coins, the ones actually solving trillion-dollar problems, are quietly syncing up for deployment. BAR's governing council keeps expanding. Boeing, Google, IBM. QNT's enterprise APIs are being baked into government pilots. XRP's cross-border settlements are now referenced in IMF and BIS documents. This isn't hopium. It's the shift from speculation to integration. When adoption becomes invisible, that's when it's real. Every cycle, the same thing happens. People wait for confirmation. They say, I'll buy when it moves. Then it moves 400% in a week, and suddenly it's too late. The truth? The move always starts in silence during windows exactly like this one. The question is, when the headlines finally hit, will you already be positioned or chasing candles? Let's talk quick numbers. If HBAR just reclaims its enterprise fair value zone near 50 cents, that's a 5 times from current levels. If QNT returns to its network value ratio from last cycle, that's a 4-6 times. If XRP gets even 10% of Swift settlement volume under ISO 20022, we're staring at a 10 times to 15 times. Now imagine what happens when they move together. Institutional corridors will create feedback loops. Each project's success fuels liquidity for the others. That's why big players call them the triad of utility. Here's how it unfolds. Day 1. Liquidity tests close. Data gets compiled. Day 2. Early reports hit internal enterprise channels. Day 3. Market desks reposition quietly. Day 4. News leaks and charts go vertical. You might not see fireworks on the first candle, but the foundations for the next leg of this bull cycle will be locked in. And once it starts, there's no rewind button. This isn't financial advice. It's situational awareness. If you've done your homework on HBAR, QNT, and XRP, this is your reminder to prepare, not to panic. Revisit your positions. Set alerts. Watch on-chain data and liquidity inflows. Because 4 days from now, the conversation could shift from if to how big. You can feel it, can't you? That quiet hum before a network goes live. The kind of silence that feels like pressure building under the surface. These aren't meme coins. They're the backbone of the financial internet. And every signal points to one thing. The rails are ready. The switch is near. And the next 4 days? They might just be the last calm before the biggest transfer of wealth this decade. Alright, let's go deeper, because what's happening behind the curtain right now isn't random. The next 4 days are about positioning. Institutional positioning. That's the piece retail never sees until it's already too late. Let's talk about why HBAR, QNT, and XRP are being aligned, not as competitors, but as infrastructure partners in the global digital money system that's rolling out right now. Most people still think crypto's about prices. But institutions? They think in systems. They don't care if a coin goes from 10 cents to 50 cents. They care if it can move $10 billion in compliance with ISO 20022 and the Financial Action Task Force (FATF) standards. And that's exactly why these three assets are being tested in the same circles. HBAR is providing the trust layer, government-grade consensus that verifies every transaction across global networks. QNT's Overledger acts like middleware, connecting private blockchains, central banks, and legacy systems. XRP is the liquidity bridge, the asset that actually settles those transfers across borders instantly. Put them together, and you've got the financial internet's trinity of interoperability. This isn't some new theory. It's what's literally being piloted by BIS innovation hubs, central banks, and top-tier fintechs. Most people just haven't connected the dots yet. Here's what nobody talks about. When big money moves, it doesn't happen in one go. It happens in phases. Phase 1 is always testing, sending small amounts through networks like RippleNet, Hedera Consensus Service, and Overledger's gateways. Phase 2 is compliance. Regulators analyze settlement times, costs, and audit trails. Phase 3 is liquidity onboarding, when real capital enters the network. We're entering Phase 3. That means custodians, remittance firms, and cross-border banks are funding corridors that run through these tokens. Not speculatively, operationally. So when I say for days, what I mean is, this next test window determines who goes live first. And whoever goes live first gets the liquidity advantage. And that's when the chart stops being flat and starts looking like a heartbeat. Look at what the big players are doing. They're rotating from speculative narratives into utility ecosystems. Meme coins? Fun, but they don't settle real money. Layer 1s? Oversaturated. DeFi tokens? Regulatory landmines. Meanwhile, HBAR is listed in enterprise tokenization frameworks. QNT is referenced by the UK's Digital Pound Foundation. XRP is part of multiple CBDC pilot discussions in Asia and the Middle East. This is the rotation from hype to utility, from noise to function. When institutions reposition, they do it quietly. And they're doing it right now. If you've been around this space, you've heard ISO 20022 1,000 times. But few people grasp its timing impact. This isn't just a messaging upgrade. It's a global financial language shift. Every payment message, every settlement confirmation, every remittance note now speaks one universal code. And here's the key. Only a handful of digital assets are natively compliant. HBAR, QNT, XRP. That's why they're in testing pipelines for central banks, Swift experiments, and cross-border fintechs. So when ISO integration expands this week, that's not just another update. That's a potential activation event for compliant digital liquidity networks. The moment those systems synchronize, institutional money can move seamlessly between traditional and digital rails. And these coins, they're the bridge assets in that process. Here's where it gets really interesting. When institutions buy, they don't market buy. They absorb. They use over-the-counter OTC desks, algorithmic sweeps, and layered orders, moving hundreds of millions without pumping charts until the absorption phase is complete. Then, liquidity hits exchanges, and retail sees sudden spikes and wonders, what just happened? That's exactly what's brewing right now. OTC flows in HBAR and XRP are rising quietly. QNT's supply on exchanges is dropping fast, down almost 40% from last quarter. That's not random accumulation. That's positioning ahead of a phase change. This is what the next 4 days are about. Compliance approvals finalize. Internal liquidity thresholds are set. OTC and market liquidity sync. Once that sync happens, there's no announcement. It just begins. Charts won't tell you the story right away, but the volume patterns will. And once that liquidity starts moving through real-world corridors, the revaluation begins automatically. It's not retail speculation. It's financial automation. When one corridor goes live, say a remittance bridge between Europe and the Middle East, that liquidity doesn't stay isolated. It bounces. The system reuses that liquidity in other corridors through auto-routing algorithms. So BAR's enterprise payments feed QNT's interoperability layers, which in turn boost XRP's settlement volume. Each success amplifies the others. That's the beauty of an interconnected system. And that's exactly why these three assets are moving in tandem for the first time. If you're holding HBAR, QNT, or XRP, you're not gambling. You're early to the infrastructure that's about to run global money. The next 4 days won't necessarily show the full explosion, but they'll mark the start of the alignment phase. That's the moment in every major trend when the noise quiets down, the data shifts, and suddenly, the market never looks the same again. So pay attention to the silence. That's where the story's being written. Here's the truth nobody's ready for. We're standing right in front of the utility flip, the exact moment when the crypto market stops being a speculation playground and becomes the infrastructure layer for global finance. And guess what? The three assets sitting right at the center of that flip are HBAR, QNT, and XRP. This is the part where things get real. Every bull run has a dividing line. On one side, hype. On the other, utility. The first cycles were driven by hype. Bitcoin's narrative, Ethereum's promise, DeFi's explosion, NFTs, memes, each had its season. But this time, it's about who's actually being used, who's inside real-world systems. That's where the big flip happens. Money stops chasing headlines and starts chasing infrastructure. And in that quiet, data-driven moment, HBAR, QNT, and XRP are perfectly positioned. Let's get something straight. Tokenization isn't a buzzword anymore. It's happening right now. The World Economic Forum, IMF, and BIS have all projected that by 2030, over $16 trillion in assets, bonds, stocks, commodities, real estate, will be tokenized and moved on distributed ledgers. Now, think about what that requires. Smart contracts that handle value with precision, HBAR. Bridges that connect private systems to the public world, QNT. Instant global liquidity for settlements, XRP. Every tokenized asset will need infrastructure coins to move, settle, and connect. And that's what's about to flip the game. Because when that system goes live, value doesn't flow where people wish it would. It flows through whatever rails actually work. This is the piece that gives people chills. Central banks, governments, and global regulators aren't coming into blockchain, they're already here. The UK's digital pound, the European Central Bank's digital euro, and multiple Middle Eastern CBDC pilots are all testing with systems that integrate or parallel the frameworks of QNT, XRP, and HBAR. They won't say it outright because markets would explode. But every technical paper, every digital sandbox test, points in one direction. Interoperability, compliance, and scalability. 3 words that describe these exact networks. So when that flip happens, when the public suddenly realizes governments are using the same assets retail investors ignored, it's over. That's not hype. That's confirmation. Institutions are no longer experimenting. They're deploying. BAR's governing council isn't crypto projects, it's Google, IBM, LG, and Standard Bank. QNT's Overledger is being integrated into enterprise IT and government digital asset sandboxes. XRP's technology underpins cross-border settlement pilots in Asia and Latin America. The scary part? Most of this infrastructure is already built. They're just waiting for regulatory green lights, which, by the way, are being finalized this week under ISO synchronization and liquidity testing. So when you hear you have 4 days, it's not clickbait. It's literal timing because these systems go live before the world knows they exist. The big flip doesn't come with fireworks. It starts with silence. Suddenly, your favorite crypto influencers stop tweeting price charts and start talking about tokenized settlements. Then you notice liquidity spikes that make no sense, volume surges on XRP, HBAR, QNT, but no news to explain it. That's not speculation. That's institutional routing, test corridors activating, banks running transactions, central bank nodes syncing live data. When that happens, prices won't rise because of hype. They'll rise because the system is using them. And once a system starts using something, it doesn't stop. That's the flip. From narrative to necessity. After this utility awakening, the market enters its next era. The infrastructure bull run. Speculative coins fade. Projects with real-world use cases explode. That's why analysts are calling HBAR, QNT, and XRP the invisible giants, the ones that will define the backbone of the financial internet. And the craziest part? When retail realizes what's happening, it'll be too late to get in cheap. Because institutions don't need hype, they just need throughput. You've got 4 days not to chase candles, but to pay attention. In those 4 days, the world's financial backbone inches closer to going fully digital. And the coins powering it? They're right in front of you. HBAR, QNT, XRP. Quietly syncing, quietly integrating. Until they're suddenly everywhere. When that moment hits, it won't feel like a pump. It'll feel like inevitability. Let me ask you something. What if I told you the digital future everyone's waiting for, the one filled with blockchain settlements, instant cross-border payments, and tokenized everything, isn't coming in 2030? It's already running in the background right now. The average person can't see it yet, but the smart money can. They're watching this invisible shift unfold in slow motion, and they're loading up before the rest of the world even realizes the flip has happened. Most people think the system will announce itself with press releases and fireworks. It won't. It'll happen like software updates, silently, automatically, overnight. You'll wake up one day and realize your local bank just enabled instant foreign transactions. No middlemen, no 3-day delays, no international processing fees. You'll see your favorite payment apps quietly integrate faster settlement layers. And if you trace the tech behind it, you'll find the same names over and over. HBAR, QNT, XRP. That's how revolutions happen, not through noise, but through integration. By 2030, almost every major asset will exist on a blockchain. Not because it's trendy, but because it's cheaper, faster, and more secure. When governments tokenize treasuries, when corporations tokenize shares, when banks tokenize deposits, they'll all need an interoperable, compliant backbone. That's where Quant connects them. When transactions move across borders in seconds instead of days, it'll need an asset that bridges currencies, that's XRP. When enterprises and banks demand an eco-friendly, scalable network for smart contracts and data integrity, that's Hedera's HBAR. The world won't even realize they're using them, just like most people today don't know how TCP/IP runs the internet. But in 2030, these ledgers will be the new TCP/IP, the financial internet's core code. Let this sink in. Every major financial institution, BlackRock, JP Morgan, the IMF, is preparing for tokenized assets to dominate markets. Estimates suggest up to $100 trillion worth of assets will exist on blockchain infrastructure by 2030. That's $100 trillion that needs bridges, rails, and liquidity. Not meme coins, not speculation, infrastructure. And who's building those rails? You already know. So when I say you've got 4 days before the world wakes up, I'm not exaggerating. I'm warning you. Because once global testnets transition into production, once the ISO system goes fully online, once central banks finalize digital corridors, price discovery will go from slow to instantaneous. You know what hits me most about this? It's not the price projections or charts, it's the psychology. Because every revolution follows the same pattern. First they mock it, then they ignore it, then they quietly join it, and finally, they pretend they were part of it all along. Right now, we're somewhere between mocking and ignoring. The headlines are still focused on Bitcoin having cycles and ETF gossip, not realizing the world is quietly replacing its financial operating system underneath their feet. That's where opportunity lives, in the blind spot. So while others chase narratives, the ones paying attention to HBAR, QNT, and XRP are positioning themselves at the foundation layer of the next global economy. Let me make this clear. The window to buy low isn't a price range, it's a time range. And that range is closing. Right now, institutions are still quietly accumulating. Retail sentiment is distracted by hype coins and ETF chatter. But when the liquidity corridors open, the same ones you've been hearing whispers about, everything flips. The moment those systems connect, it's not just a pump. It's a revaluation. Picture this. It's 2030. You're watching a documentary about how the world went digital, how financial systems moved to blockchain, how banks and governments transformed payments. And as the narrator speaks, you realize something. You were there before it happened. You knew the signs. You saw the connections. You didn't wait for permission. Because while everyone else laughed or hesitated, you paid attention to the quiet systems that built the foundation. That's what separates investors from visionaries. The big flip isn't coming. It's already started. And the next 4 days might be the most important window before this entire thing goes live. If you're holding HBAR, QNT, or XRP, this is your time to pay attention, not panic. Because in a few weeks, people will scroll through old videos like this one and realize the signs were all there. So do your research, stay focused, and remember, the system doesn't announce when it's ready. It just turns on. If you found this breakdown valuable, smash that like button so the algorithm wakes up too, and subscribe, because next week we're diving into how Ripple and Quant are linking directly into the IMF's global liquidity network. Because if you thought this was big, the next update might just break the internet.